Welcome to the White Collar Insider. Join your host, David Benowitz, as he discusses all things white collar, federal criminal defense, and beyond.
My inaugural guest on the White Collar Insider podcast is Moe Fodeman, who is a partner at Wilson Sonsini in Manhattan. He's been there for 11 years. Before that, he was an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of New York for 7 years. And I know Moe because we met because we were both on the faculty at the Trial Advocacy Workshop at Harvard Law School. And so welcome, Moe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David.
Sure. So I know we were just talking about our pandemic situation. So I see you have the Peloton.
I do.
And I will tell you
got me through the pandemic.
Yes. And I will tell you that although we both have very fine, I have a Manhattan suit. I will confess that I do have sweatpants on.
Jeans.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. So, at Wilson Sonsini, you do primarily white collar. Is that correct?
Mostly white collar. Yeah. Some civil
I'm
litigation.
to cross-examine you, by the way, by asking a leading question.
Lead away.
So,
yes. The practice is mostly white collar, regulatory defense, SEC stuff like that, but also do some civil litigation too, as well.
And when you came out of law school, did you go directly to U.S. Attorney's Office?
So when I graduated Emory in Atlanta in '97, I went to the DA's office. I was a state prosecutor in Brooklyn. I was there for 6 or 7 years, and that's where I started trying cases and handled a lot of violent crimes, and eventually moved over to the U.S. Attorney's Office in 2003.
Okay, so you were a prosecutor for about 14 years.
Yeah, almost 14 years total.
Wow. So how did you find that switch?
Well, it was an adjustment. It was certainly an adjustment. Well, first of all, leaving public service and joining the world of for-profit enterprise is an adjustment. And then switching sides in the courtroom is an adjustment too. I'd never stepped foot in a law firm until I started at Wilson Sonsini. Literally, my only exposure to the inside of an actual law firm, I think, was L.A. Law and Ally McBeal. So
that's a great background.
They were great shows. The offices looked nice, and Wilson Sonsini's offices are nice. So it was a perfect fit. But there is obviously an adjustment in some respects. In other respects, it's much of the same. It's often it's the same substance. You're fighting about the same things, but obviously, when you're taking it from the defense standpoint, not only the argument's different, but the challenges are different. So, it was an adjustment, and I'm still making it 11 years later.
Yeah, I would think after that much time as a prosecutor, it would be. Although it would definitely be an adjustment. But I also think, and that it makes you're so conscious of it that it may make you in fact more aggressive, which can be a good thing as a defense lawyer.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, there's some stuff that you get through pretty easily. Like for the first 6 months, I would stand up and say Moe Fodeman for the United States, which your client who's facing the next 30 years in federal prison doesn't like to hear. But once I got that out of my system, I think a lot of it, I think it does make you fight harder in some ways. It certainly knows the tricks of the other side. That's one benefit. You've been doing it for 14 years, and I had a pretty good sense of where prosecutors are going to go and the way they think, which I think is definitely an advantage. So it's a process. But I think it can be a valuable background for a defense attorney, especially in the white collar arena, I think.
I think, I would say, particularly in white collar, I think it's really important because it's, I think the case is so complicated that tends to lead to more complicated decision making.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. You also. Look, I know the agents, I know the judges, I know the court personnel, and certainly all of that stuff helps no matter which side you're on in terms of getting the job done. So, the transition is a process, but one, with time, it definitely I think makes you a better lawyer in the end.
Do you find that representing individual clients is part of the challenge now as a defense lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a bit of a unique situation, and I'm at this big law firm, right, where our clients are some of the biggest companies in the world, many of them technology companies, and big law firms often have white collar practices, but oftentimes the lawyers in those departments or in those areas are only representing companies. And I have a little unique situation in that I have a good part of my practice is representing individuals. Probably the majority of my practice is representing individuals in the government's crosshairs, and that's unique, I think, on this platform. And with that comes, as you alluded to, a bunch of challenges that you're not facing as a prosecutor. Dealing with the human drama of it all, and what it's dealing with someone who's facing the prospect of losing their liberty, or losing their family, or losing all that they've worked for, which is what can happen to someone who's charged with a federal criminal offense. Is eye-opening, daunting, challenging, all those things, and it's a good part of what I do every day. I tell people half of my job is like being a psychiatrist, and half of it's being a lawyer.
Right.
So,
exactly. I found exactly the same thing. And again, I've never been a prosecutor, but that's what I assume is one of the big differences in that.
yeah. That's 100%. It's the counseling that is a good part of what I do. On the other side, you have to be smart about, you have to know people on either side though too. A prosecutor has to know how to, get a witness, to connect with a witness, to get them to be cooperative, or connect with an agent or a police officer to get them to go the extra mile to unearth that piece of evidence. So one of the things that I love about this area of law is it's so driven by humanity and the human connection and the human drama, more so than civil litigation or other aspects of the law that folks practice. It really has a true human element in it, and that's true on both sides.
No, I totally agree, and it's interesting that you say that, because I was doing a plea where we worked out a great resolution that's going to result in no conviction for our client, and we did it by video, and this is a few months ago. And I remember doing it. It was the first resolution of a case that I'd done by video, on Zoom or
right.
platform.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, the human element is so muted here, even though we got a great resolution and our client was happy. Just not being in the same room and being able to connect with people almost physically, it really takes a lot of the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, that's true about a lot of aspects of life these days in the Zoom era, but particularly in what we do, interacting with people is so critical, and it's really, like so many things that are missing, that is a big thing. It really is. It really is. I just did a guilty plea and a sentencing for also a great result, where a client avoided jail and got to go back home to China. But not only was it was Zoom with a translator. So it was prolonged, and anytime you have a translator, you lose some of that human connection, right? Because you can't really fully communicate with your client and understand the inflection and the emotion. So between Zoom and the translator, it was about as connected as playing a video game. I mean, it really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We did a Christmas party 2 weeks ago, and my business partner decided he would, the managing partner of the firm decided he was going to get a comedian to entertain us, which I thought it was very creative, and the comedian was in his basement. So I made the mistake when he made a joke that sort of fell flat. I was the one guy who said, "Oh," and he immediately just picked me out as the heckler on Zoom.
Yeah,
and
that's creative.
It turned out fine, but it was just such a weird feeling. He was literally sort of half going after me and engaging with me on Zoom. So I'm watching this guy on a screen, and I'm saying stuff, and then he's responding. It was just very weird.
Yeah.
People are laughing, and I was like, wow, this is it's a really bizarre experience.
Totally. I mean, when I watch like the Tonight Show now, I'm like, this must be so hard for these guys, right? Where they used to having an audience, and now they're just staring into a camera and they have no feedback.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what we do with juries, right? I mean, what the best part of our job is talking to juries and getting their reaction.
Right.
And that's gone, right? It's gone from our practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both have similar sort of levels of trial experience. I mean, I remember my first solo jury trial. I was doing my closing argument, and I remember I'm doing the closing, and in the back of my head is my inner voice saying, "This is the coolest thing you've ever done. This is so awesome," and I can hear the words coming out of my mouth, plus my internal dialogue at the same time. It was amazing.
Probably has never happened to anybody doing a Zoom call. I don't think. No.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think that happens on Zoom. No, not these types of Zoom calls. I don't think it will. But I know you have a ton of trial experience.
Yeah, I was trying to put together how many cases I've tried to verdict. It's definitely in the 40s, maybe more. You rack up a lot at the DA's office, right? Probably like same with you when you were doing public defender stuff, and
right.
where you would do 6-8 trials a year.
Right.
But I've been fortunate since I've been here for 11 years. I've probably tried another 8 cases or 10 cases or so, which is, I think, also unusual on a big firm platform. So
that's what I was gonna say. I think really at a big firm, I mean, like the one you're at, that's got to be almost unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, in fairness, is the civil stuff that's our arbitration. So I don't really consider it a trial when it's in someone's conference room, but it's in some ways you're trying to a judge and you're examining witnesses, and so I'll count that.
Right, and it's not on Zoom.
And it's not on Zoom, not yet anyway. I haven't done that, although some people have. I know people are out there trying cases on Zoom, which to me sounds excruciating.
I don't see how that. I mean, I've thought about it. I don't see how that would ever work, particularly with a jury. I mean, I just think
jury. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not possible.
Yeah. No, I know a guy who's doing one at a judge trial, and my partner has done a bunch of depositions in a big civil litigation. He says he finds it, Michael Summer. He found it very, very challenging because you lose that connection to the witness and the ability to sort of control them that you have in a room when you're face to face with someone. So.
Well, it's really amazing. I mean, I think one of the things this has really brought home is just how much of our work is based on the energy in the room.
Yep, you're right.
And I think that's one of the things that I think we both try and teach, which is, you have to, when you're doing this work, you have to be in the moment, and you can't be wedded to your notes. You can't be wedded to really anything but what the witness is saying and understanding how it affects your case. And like you're saying, trying to control the witness. I don't know, on a screen, there's too much both physical distance and sort of energetic distance to be able
Totally. It really, it's the worst thing that could happen to a trial lawyer. Right? It's everything that's great about being a trial lawyer has been robbed from us.
I know. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I'm like, when am I getting vaccinated?
Yeah, exactly. When can I sign up?
Gotta get vaccinated. Well, I know, we both have, if you wouldn't mind telling us, I know I'm aware of one of your more interesting recent trial victories in the Eastern District of New York. And I know you correct me if I'm wrong, but you made securities law fun and interesting for a jury.
We tried, and it wasn't easy. I tried a case. We call it the Platinum Partners case after the hedge fund. That was the focus of it. I represented with my partner Michael, the former co-chief investment officer. He and about 6 of his former colleagues from the hedge fund. This was a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund here in Manhattan. Were charged with what the government described as running the largest Ponzi scheme since Madoff. Case garnered a lot of media attention in the financial press, but also the general press here in New York had a lot of a big cast of characters, and various folks touched on it, were investors, and it gathered a lot of interest, and it culminated in a trial after 4 years of pretrial litigation last summer. Trial lasted close to 13 weeks or so. And in the end, after a number of twists and turns, our client was acquitted, along with the other two that went to trial. So it was a great win, great victory.
That's fantastic. How did you relate that material, or get that material to be, or how were you able to relate it to a jury?
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly the challenge, right? I mean,
it's a jury, right?
Yeah, I mean, to give you a sense of how complex some of this was, it's hard to even. I'll lay it out in, like, not dumbing it down, but it's part of the case involved a bond offering, and whether my client and others had conspired to trick lawyers into changing the bond indenture that governs the rules by which money that comes into the company that's offering the bonds can distribute money, and whether they essentially rigged the vote. I mean, your eyes are glazing over, and you're a trial lawyer, right?
My eyes slow, like the lids are slowly sinking. Yeah, I don't know how you could. I mean, look, that's the challenge.
Yeah,
to make
right.
That
exactly.
To non-lawyers.
Totally. That is it. And that was only part of the case. There was a whole other scheme that was really the focus of the government's case. But you try to equate it to themes and concepts that jurors are familiar with. A lot of the case was, did the hedge fund overvalue the investments it made, right? So, went out and bought portions of companies, and then it told its investors that these companies are going up in value. Well, that's like a real estate agent lying to you about the value of a home that you're about to buy, or make it somewhat relatable to the jurors. And you have to understand who your jurors are. I mean, a lot of jurors never dealt with a real estate agent, so maybe that's not the best analogy. So you really gotta think it through and try to I don't want to say dumb it down, because it's not dumbing it down. It's making it more relatable so that the jurors can dig into it. That's part of it. And then I really believe this. Maybe I'm become jaded, but to the extent the jurors don't fully get it, don't completely understand the details, get them to trust you and distrust the government. And so to the extent they need to fill in the blanks, they're filling it in with, whatever Moe said, or what, and so a lot of what goes on in the courtroom over a 12-week period is gaining the trust of getting the jurors to like and trust you, and getting the jurors to hate and mistrust the government. And it's a challenge, because I think most jurors, when they come into a federal courtroom, they may say they don't, but when they actually get in there, I think that they tend to believe that the FBI agents in their white shirts are doing the right thing, and that the federal prosecutors are doing God's work and probably have it right, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And you have to overcome that and get them to start thinking the opposite is true, that these folks have it all wrong, and that they can't be trusted, and that they're doing things for some improper purpose or motive.
Do you find that the getting jurors to believe that there's an improper motive is that a big leap in your experience, to get jurors to go there?
It's interesting. I think, times change. I think, sometimes people are very, very, and I don't want to say enamored with, but very trustful of the government. And other times, depending on what's happening in the news, they may be more distrustful of the government and the Department of Justice, and so I think part of it depends on the time and how receptive an audience may be to some of these concepts. But I do really believe it's fundamental in most cases, maybe not all, but in most cases, for the jurors to start distrusting the messenger. If it's a simple case, or it's a case that they don't need a lawyer to explain the details, maybe not. Maybe they can go it alone. But if it's one of these white-collar cases that are typically very complex, with thousands of documents that nobody could possibly with no background in the financial services industry, somehow master and decipher what happened sometimes years ago. It really depends on whether the jurors trust the messenger, who they trust in that courtroom.
Right. That's really so. My final question is, what are you most looking forward to doing at the end of the pandemic?
That's a good question. Let's see. Like to go back to Yankee games.
Yeah.
Sports, that'd be fun. Going places. Not exercising in my bedroom here on this Peloton.
Right.
Those are up there. How about you?
I'm thinking about a trip to Costa Rica.
It'd be good.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I've never been there, and it just it's far away, and it's got a beach.
Yeah, when's this all going to be over?
My doctor says he thinks it's possible we could all be at a ball game in July.
This of 2021?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Me too.
I think they had 7 people vaccinated yesterday, so that's good.
Right. This is a couple of weeks ago that he told me this.
Oh, all right. He may have to reassess.
That you and 6 other people could go.
There you go. 6 more that are going now.
Right. Yeah, but hopefully after the end of the month.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Mo, thank you so much for being my first guest.
It's been an honor.
It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you virtually at Harvard trial advocacy class.
And in person in 2025.
See you then.
Thanks for joining us for White Collar Insider with David Benowitz. Join us next week for another look into white-collar crime, criminal justice issues, and more. Stay tuned for new episodes by subscribing to our show on all of your favorite streaming platforms.